There was a video yesterday from WDW Pro that took things in a much different direction than I would have ever thought to take them. And I want to promise this right up front, that this is not going to turn into a channel that criticizes The View all that often. I just think that we are at what might be a cultural turning point with this program. And the video from WDW Pro really kind of drove that point home. Now, they have in the past at WDW Pro at that park place forecasted things that were coming that I think were kind of unimaginable prior to their happening, and they were right. And one of the things that happened, the thing that was talked about in that video yesterday was the fact that the View had a quote unquote babysitter. And what that was, I would have, had I watched The View and seen this segment, would have thought that it was just a war correspondent sitting at the desk, etc. I mean, especially with things like international affairs, things like that, especially with war and how sensitive that topic is, even though I don't think a war is going to come of it. It might help. It might aid the hosts of the show to have someone who is in depth in that stuff. But the guys at WDW Pro really drove the point home that what was going on there was babysitting. This man was being put on set in order to make sure that they didn't say anything that was going to get them in trouble, i.e., to make sure that they didn't say anything too stupid. So, I think that a little bit of background here, and then we'll talk about how long some of The View has been going the way that it's going. And then I want to talk about some cultural sort of some cultural standpoints as far as what might happen here. But I wanted to outline some of the recent things that have happened with The View and how it is that we may have gotten to the point that we're at. An article was titled "Whoopi Goldberg Absent from The View Amid Backlash for Comparing Black Americans to People in Iran." Now, I did see this clip. I only saw it once, and I believe that the author here is incorrect. I believe that she did not compare the plight of black people to the plight of people in Iran. I think that she compared the plight of black people in America to the plight of women in Iran. Whoopi Goldberg is absent from The View this week amid intense backlash for her controversial remarks about Iran. The Oscar winner's comments sparked harsh criticism from Iranian dissidents and social media users who called the comparison offensive and inaccurate. Amid the uproar, Whoopi Goldberg appeared unfazed in a celebratory post from the Taubuk Festival, where she received an award for her book Bits and Pieces. Now, I wanted to just, because I think I'm right that she compared the plight of black people in America to the plight of women in Iran. I wanted to outline some of the things that women can't do in Iran. Dress code and appearance. This is given to me by ChatGPT, so blame Sam Altman. Not wearing the hijab in public. Women are legally required to wear a headscarf and cover their bodies in public. Failure to do so can result in arrest, fines, or worse. Wearing immodest clothing. Tight-fitting clothes, short sleeves, and bright colors are often deemed inappropriate. What is the punishment for these things? Well, you can figure that out. Travel and mobility. Traveling abroad without male permission for married women. Married women need their husband's permission to obtain a passport or leave the country. Riding a bicycle or motorcycle in public, while not always formally outlawed, it's effectively banned or discouraged by authorities and can result in arrest. Social and public behavior. Singing solo in public for women. Women are not allowed to sing solo before a mixed gender audience. Dancing in public dancing, especially mixed gender or female solo dancing, is banned. Attending certain sporting events, women have been banned or severely restricted from entering stadiums to watch men's sports. Enough enforcement, though enforcement varies. Legal and civil rights having equal weight in court testimony. A woman's testimony is often worth half that of a man's in court, meaning if it's my word versus a woman's word, there has to be two women, otherwise, whatever I say is what happened. Getting equal inheritance. Daughters typically inherit half as much as sons. That's, I think, more of a cultural thing. Um, is it right? Is it awesome? No, but I don't think that's something that the state is enforcing. Unrestricted divorce rights. While men can divorce at will, women face major legal hurdles to initiate divorce. So the plight of black Americans is certainly different than the plight of Iranian women. And this should be clear. And the phrase out of Whoopi Goldberg's mouth defending herself in this moment was you something along the lines of that's not how it feels, you don't know how I feel, something like that. This isn't about feelings. This is not about feelings. These are very, very different circumstances. And then I wanted to take a because this isn't the dumbest thing that has come out of Whoopi Goldberg's mouth. Not even the dumbest thing that's come out of Whoopi Goldberg's mouth in the last handful of years. This is something that was forgotten, but I remembered. Largely forgotten, but from 2022, I believe it was. ABC suspends Whoopi Goldberg for comments on Jews, race, and the Holocaust. The suspension came a day after Goldberg's comments during a discussion on The View that race was not a factor in the Holocaust. Goldberg apologized hours later and again on Tuesday morning's episode, but the original remark drew condemnation from several prominent Jewish leaders. So, Whoopi Goldberg, when is it that race is in the question? When is it the race is not in the question? And how does it maybe always happen to be when you decide that it is part of the equation? Just an absolutely what to say that I remembered this because it made me so angry that someone so stupid was in a place so profitable. I don't know what Whoopi Goldberg is making to be on The View, but I guarantee you it's millions of dollars. And we'll see later how long she has been collecting those paychecks. And then another thing that happened very recently, Arnold Schwarzenegger shocks The View by defending immigration law and calling for immigrant responsibility from that part placed by Marvin Montanaro. Arnold Schwarzenegger was appearing on The View to promote his Netflix series FUBAR, but the host immediately dove right into politics. And guys, this segment went FUBAR. The conversation took a sharp turn when Arnold himself, an immigrant from Austria, was asked about the National Guard's presence in Los Angeles and whether ICE operations should continue. Rather than condemn immigration enforcement the way Whoopi Goldberg and the other hosts on The View seemed to want, Arnold flipped the script. When you come to America, you're a guest. I'm not going to do it the whole time. And you have to behave like a guest, he said. Like when I go to someone's house and I'm a guest, then I will do everything I can to keep things clean and to make my bed and do everything that is right, the right thing to do, rather than committing a crime or being abusive or something like that. So that doesn't really work in this country. This segment was absolutely wild because the entire time he was going against what the generally accepted narrative is on The View. Sunny Hostins, whatever her last name is, was just touching Arnold's arm, trying to say, hey, shut up a little bit. Don't talk about this. And it didn't matter. If you are not familiar with Arnold's story, one of the most truly inspiring stories you will ever read. I used to have I believe it was a muscle mag. It may have been Men's Fitness that I carried around with me through so many moves to different apartments because it was a miniature biography on Arnold and just the stuff he went through. I mean, just that was a wild man, and really, really impressive. So I'm glad that he went on The View and did some work. And then we get this one. Bill Maher says Democrats need to, quote, do something, end quote, about The View after Whoopi Goldberg's Iran comments. Real-time host Bill Maher, this is from Fox, real-time host Bill Maher and Rep. Wesley Hunt, a Republican from Texas, hammered Whoopi Goldberg and The View on Friday after the co-host claimed that life for Black Americans is equivalent, to women living in Iran's oppressive theocratic regime. Maher claimed that Democrats took a step back to sanity after the New York Times took a more sensible, liberal, not crazy woke position on transgender issues. He then asserted that the second step Democrats should take is to do something about The View. So there's gender stuff and then The View, in Bill Maher's opinion. And am I wrong? Didn't Bill Maher very recently, go on The View and kind of not do well because of how wild everyone was there? After Goldberg's comment comparing life for Black Americans to living under Iran's brutal regime. Now, I just wanted to highlight and comment on some of these things fairly briefly because I think if WDW Pro and the guys at that park place are correct, and this was a babysitter sent to the set of The View to stop them from saying anything too stupid, we almost have to be at a boiling point. Because I'm a Disney shareholder, and they're not doing great. So if you have to keep paying people to sit in and babysit a show with as high a salary cap, if you will, as The View, you're spending way too much money. Now, I put together, so I went back and figured out, how long has Joy Behar been on The View? You won't believe the answer. How long has Whoopi Goldberg been on The View? Joy Behar has been on The View for 28 years, since 1997. That was the first year South Park was on TV. Joy Behar's The View run is as long as South Park's run on TV. That's the year Candle in the Wind by Elton John came out. And Mbop by the Hanson triplets, by Hanson. It's also the year that Titanic was the number one movie at the box office. That's how long Joy Behar has been sitting on the set of The View. Whoopi Goldberg has been on The View for 18 years, since 2007. Spider-Man 3 and Transformers were in theaters, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe was not yet a thing. These two individuals have been on that show for a very long time. Joy Behar, I believe when I looked this up, she was not one of the original cast members for The View, but she was one of the original fill-ins for The View that very first season, and just kind of hung around like a cockroach. So, it is interesting that these two people have been on that one show for so very long. What would it mean for a cultural hallmark like The View to do one of two things? To A, go off the air, or B, replace the two longest running hosts in probably in the show's history. Obviously, Joy Behar is one of them, but I would imagine that 18 years for Whoopi Goldberg, that is one as well. Well, here's the thing that is interesting to me. I think this is something which is undervalued in these types of discussions very often, because this is the same argument that I have against people who hate the MCU because other movies are failing. You don't blame the winners, right? The View has been around for a very long time. So to chastise The View for what it is that they're doing seems sort of silly, because it's working. It seems, however, to be working less and less as the craziness gets higher and higher. But It is interesting, in my opinion, also to note that though the popularity of The View may be waning, it is not gone. The View is still there, still culturally relevant. I think a touchstone like The View is something that is watched so passively by so many people who take in little bits of what it is that they see, little bits of what it is that they hear, that they don't even realize they're getting amped up, ramped up, and polarized by this silly TV show. They just put it on while they're doing their cooking, while they're doing the laundry, while they're doing whatever tasking it is that they do, whenever it is that The View is on. I have no idea. And they're just absorbing these people's quote unquote thoughts. Should this change? The View gets canceled. The View just says, hey, we're going to go on a break. And when we come back, there will be 4 completely new cast members. So long as they are not as crazy and Karenish as the 4 who are on there now. I think that the temperature in a good chunk of the country would just sort of simmer down. I really do believe that. Look at how violent things are on the left wing of politics and how violent the rhetoric is from the left wing of political commentary. But, for example, Gutfeld does not carry this same tone. Jesse Waters does not carry this same tone. They are not advocating violence. They are not ramping up their viewers. They like to make jokes, etc. That's not what we're getting from the left wing of things. Even the people who were supposed to be funny, the Jimmies that do the late night TV shows, they're not funny. When you turn to, and I don't take in a whole bunch of Jesse Waters, I don't take in a whole bunch of Gutfeld. Sometimes they come across my YouTube feed, and maybe I'll listen to them for a few minutes. They're constantly trying to make people laugh. That is not what we see from the other side of things. So I think that there is a large, and so look at the riots. Look at the protests. Look at people causing problems in the street. What is it? You tell me. I mean, bring up any of these videos and you tell me that it's not middle-aged-ish white women. What is the audience for The View? It's not me. I doubt it's you. It's middle-aged white women. I guarantee you it's middle-aged white women. Who else wants to watch Joy Behar? Probably not even middle-aged white women. So it is interesting that the correlation between The View's sort of target demographic and the most irate people in the country are the same people. So what happens if that changes? And it doesn't have to be the opposite. It doesn't have to all of a sudden you turn on the television midday ABC and it's Tuckett Carlson. It is Alexis Jones. I'm not saying that at all. Just not people who sit there and chew their fingernails getting so anxious about everything that happens in the world. How much different would things be immediately if that were not the case? For how many people would things change immediately? How many Karens would change and de-escalate into a Cassandra? something like that. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with others. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, I like to talk about lots of different stuff on this channel, and this is one of them. So consider hitting the subscribe button, and I hope to have you back for the next one.